This is Analytical Media. We are a consortium, a group of therapists, college professors, and well-published peer-reviewed authors. Today we're going to look at a message sent to us, or one of our criminologists, from a targeted individual, a gang stalking victim, or so they claim. That's how they classify themselves. During this, I'm going to stop and show, rather than read the whole thing, it's long, and read it twice, I'm going to stop as I find things to be important. We look at gang stalking because either it is a real phenomenon and of special interest to the general public, or it is a psychological issue, it's a delusional issue. And as such, that's our bailiwick. We deal with psychology, philosophy, therapies. And so you can see it's either a delusion, which would be psychological in nature, or it is real. If it's real, there's psychological damage being done to the gang stalking victims, the TIs. An amazing amount of damage. And when they get pushed too far, they oftentimes react with violence. Thus, the mass murders attributed to these people. That's why we're looking at targeted individuals. So let me read this to you, the message sent to us. Hello, I can help with your research findings, exploring more on this topic, because my case is probably the most extreme in the history of targeting. Let's stop right there. You can't make claims without evidence. When this person says, my case is probably, it means most likely, the most extreme in the history of targeting, alarms should go off. To make such a powerful claim, you need powerful evidence. I mean, it's like two liars talking to each other. And one liar says, I have all the powers of God. And the other one looks at him and says, I have twice the power of God. And then they go back and forth 4 times, 8 times, 10 times. Without evidence, you can say anything you want, you can make any claim you want, but you must have evidence or it means absolutely nothing. So for this person to say, mine is probably the most extreme in the history of targeting, right away, she had better have, or he had better have, powerful evidence, really powerful, because this is the worst case. There have been some pretty bad cases. So your radar should turn on at that point. Why does this person say? Probably the most extreme in the history of targeting. This person goes on to say, I am a veteran. The perpetrators of my attacks are military, federal, local, and state. We're not talking, a couple hundred. We're talking on a very large scale, thousands. Again, you make a claim like that, you had better have some proof. You need evidence. People aren't going to believe you just because you claim it's true. And that's the big problem with TI. They're not believable. They're not believed by the community, the culture, the police, the FBI, the CIA. They need some evidence. If there's enough evidence to prove it to them that they're being gang stalked, that evidence should be available to show to other people. This person goes on to say, I reported military sexual trauma, and pretty much a war crime commenced after that. Of course, there's more details to explain, but this involves premeditated murder attempts and entrapment. They have direct energy, destructive energy weapons surrounding my home. Surveyed 360. Now, I'm not making mistakes reading this to you. The mistakes you hear in the grammar, in the flow, in the logic, that's what's written before you. I am being very careful to read exactly what was written. They have a direct energy, destructive energy weapon surrounding my home, surveyed 360. Again, we need evidence. There's participation from, again, federal, military, local, state, private citizens, and contractors. There must be some evidence to make that claim. This is the history of all historical cases that will be done on TIs. If you and I were to get together, my footage speaks for itself. My footage is phenomenal regarding everything that I'm mentioning. I also sent you a letter explaining this in more detail. This is horrendous. Some people do not have the thick skin like I do to withstand this terrorism from these attackers of mine. These perpetrators that apparently not only are they in power, they're involved in cults, satanic, all kinds of evil you can't imagine. Well, it sounds pretty bad, but do you have any evidence at all? This letter is one of allegations. It's not one including any evidence at all. They go after people who they want to eliminate from this earth for reasons of their own personal agenda. It's an interesting hypothesis, but what do you base that on? Mine happens to be, again, I am a veteran who reported military sexual trauma, that this could have a lot more of a background that I'm not aware of. But what I am aware of, I've been able to capture, and it's all factual. So my life is in danger. My constitutional rights are violated, and that's the least. My life constantly is in danger. People try to push me onto incoming traffic. They have massive vehicles tracking me. I don't know. I mean, beyond being tracked through GPS with a sophisticated military technology that they use, they could be tracking me other ways. My house is tampered with from head to toe, from top to bottom. Hopefully my body is not. This is really, like I said, the worst case in known to man. And of course I've tried to reach out, but at this point, whatever's going on in the background, there's cohorts, there's, federal, military, local, state cohorts. I'm not just your average, typical CIA, FBI. That's, COINTELPRO. The people who did this program back in the 60s, targeting individuals. This is intel agencies that's involved. So there's a list. I don't know how much research you have on it, but there's a list that's created, and this list identifies people who they want to eliminate and use for whatever other purpose. Now, again, let's stop right there. Thousands of people are involved. Super sophisticated weapons of technology are involved. Only because they want to eliminate this person, win a very cheap bullet by a quiet assassin in the night. 30-cent bullet with a quiet assassin, one person. This person is then eliminated. After all, it's not killing that bothers the persons that target the individual. The gang stalkers, they don't care about killing. That's the whole purpose. Well then, what stops them from something easier, quicker, guaranteed to work? But for me, this has been going on for a very long time, and I'm not going to allow myself to succumb to their agenda. So I know that was a lot. I did send a letter. I'm contacting you not in a proprietary area, so my conversation is going to be not as blunt as I would like. Again, I can help you beyond what you probably know exists regarding the capabilities of these people. Not just in power, but they use everybody, and everybody has an incentive to participating, mainly financially. And it's awful. I mean, beyond disgraceful. This is, like I said, terrorism. And it is legit war crime. And I'm looking for prosecution, of course. But if we can assist with getting this exposed, we can work together. Work together with my documentation and my footage. Like I said, my footage is hands down indisputable regarding the tactics they use, the faces, the license plates, the activities, premeditated murder on my life constantly, the strategies. I have everything. If you have a video showing the faces of these people, how would that help? You'd have to have these people, these faces, doing gang stalking behavior against you. They'd have to be doing something illegal. And if your video shows the license plates, what good would that possibly do? I could go into any parking lot and take all kinds of pictures and videos of license plates. And what would that prove? The cars have license plates? Now, if you have a photo of a car committing a crime and the license plate of that car is visible, then you have evidence. But this person does not say that. The activities, well, what are you specifically referring to? People dressed like ninjas crawling across your lawn at night? That would be interesting, but you'd think if you had that, you would not describe it as the activities. You'd say, and ninjas crawling across my lawn at night. And then she says, premeditated murder on my life constantly. Or he says. It's a he or a she. Just because they reported sexual harassment, it doesn't mean it's a female. It could be a male. We don't know. Premeditated murder. You would think it would take a lot of investigation to put together a case of premeditation. I would not think that a video alone could show or prove premeditation. And then she says the strategies they use. Well, whatever you're referring to as evidence had better prove a crime. It had better be illegal. It's not enough to have pictures of a group of people with no direct tie to some illegal activity. Just pictures of a group of people. She has faces, or he has faces, or they have faces. But you have to have those faces connected to a body that's engaging in some criminal activity. If you had a picture of them killing someone, a video of them killing someone, that would not prove anything beyond murder. It would not prove premeditation. Yet she claims, or he claims to have, they claim to have, that prove premeditation. Take everything written in this letter, take it to the police, and you're going to get a pretty chilly response because there's no evidence here. If you think you're a gang stalking victim, you have to allow for the fact that you may not be, that it may be a delusion, because no one who is delusional knows that they're delusional. However, the smarter people who are delusional allow for that. They say, hey, I have a history of schizophrenia, perhaps. I know I can be very delusional. I had a client once who, wonderful human being in so many ways, but so delusional. She brought me a small gift every time she came to her session. It was a small gift, less expensive than a cup of coffee, but a thoughtful gift. A small thing. Very nice human being, a college student, going to a prestigious college and succeeding. Except she had been medicated for schizophrenia for several years. And I won't go into anything else about that except to say she was bright and she allowed for the fact that she might be having delusions. She allowed for that. It's possible. Whereas most delusional people, they deny that they're delusional. But she wanted to think it through and oftentimes did. But I'm pointing out to you, she lived in an older home in an older part of the city, or a city near my practice, very close. And she thought that she was being watched with cameras that were in the ceiling of the house she was renting, the apartment she was renting. Because in the middle of the ceilings, and she brought me pictures, in the middle of the ceiling were these bumps that were painted over repeatedly. They were something like a whiskey glass glued to the ceiling covered with paint, sometimes sticking out a little further on a skinny pipe-looking thing. She thought they were cameras, and she was very hesitant to say anything or do anything where she wanted privacy. And I told her, which was obvious from the pictures, that these things were pieces of pipe for the old gas lights that used to be in that house. Older homes in this area, it's an older part of the country, at one time had gas lights all over the place and still have all the piping. And when they took the gas lights out, they put a metal cap on the end of the pipe, tested it for gas leak, and over the years they got painted over and over again. They weren't metal anymore. And I told her I thought that's what it was. She should have one or two plumbers look at it for her. I knew it's very common, and maybe in your part of the world, these old gas fittings are very common in the homes in your part, in older homes. You know what I'm referring to. But I knew that's what it was. I'd seen it many times. In fact, they were in the home I was raised in. I told her to have more than one plumber come in, because both plumbers are very unlikely to be part of any conspiracy against her. It's the paranoia. One, well, they might have been part of the conspiracy, but she was well enough to know, because she was functioning in life. She was going to school. She was going to college and doing well. Going to a big university, well known and doing well. She did have two plumbers come in. They both said they were gas. In fact, she was standing there when they removed one so she could see the gas and hear it leaking out. It wasn't a camera. They put a big heavy wrench on it, she said. But she responded to evidence, and anyone believing that they are a targeted individual must gather evidence and respond to it. And if you can't prove it, then you shouldn't believe it. Just because you hear some voice in your head telling you something does not mean you're a gang stalking victim. It could well mean you were hallucinating, that you are delusional. It happens. It happens to the best of people. To varying degrees it happens. You have to test reality. You hear a strange noise in a basement. Sounds like somebody's moving around. Or it could be a box fell over. Don't you test your hypothesis? Do you believe there's somebody in a basement? Or do you go down into the basement and look? Or have a friend go look? Or get a gun and go down and look? You test the working hypothesis that there's someone in the basement. And when nobody's in the basement, and nobody could have gotten in, all the doors are locked from the inside, and you're satisfied, you now reject the hypothesis that those bumps in the ceiling are cameras, or that the noise you heard in the basement was an intruder. You reject that hypothesis. It was something that you saw fall over. It was laying on the floor, could have made the noise. Nothing else could have. Doors, windows locked from the inside. No place for anyone to hide. When you're satisfied there's no one down there, you reject your hypothesis. Some targeted individuals, some gang stalking victims, will need to reject the hypothesis that they really are being gang stalked. They could be delusional or hallucinating, or they could be perfectly real, but we need some evidence. Can you gather evidence? Faces of the people doing this, that's not evidence. Faces of those people hiding in your closet, that's evidence. Faces of those people hiding in the dark outside your home, that's evidence. Them walking down the street to their house, that's not evidence. You have to be doing something illegal. Is the person who wrote this letter a gang stalking victim? Are they a TI? Who knows? Certainly, there's no evidence to show that they are. And there is evidence to suggest they might be delusional by using such grand conclusions that they are the worst victim ever. This is the worst case ever, that this is all premeditated. It's hard to prove premeditation, but you know somehow. You know how many people are involved? Thousands. And also you know why, because they want to kill you. You're on the list. But it's a little illogical for them to do this. If they want to kill you, they're doing a lousy job of it, aren't they? Doing a great job of torturing you, I'll give you that. But you didn't say they wanted to torture you. You said they wanted to eliminate you. They're doing a poor job of elimination. Think about it. Think about this whole thing. Could be real, might not be real. Could be evidence, might not be evidence. You desperately need evidence. And if you can't find it enough to convince another person, why are you convinced that you are a gang stalking victim? This is Analytical Media. Please subscribe, like, make a comment so that YouTube will push this out through the algorithm to more people. We'd like to spread the message. We're trying to help. If you're willing to help us, help other people, please do so. We thank you. And the other people might thank you. We will post again. We hope to see you then. Until then, please take care.